You are living in the most dangerous time in American history.
We won't take a single back step.
Former professional basketball player is now the Republican Party's choice.
Can you imagine Royce White, the U.S. Senator?
White won the endorsement on May 18th with 67% of the vote.
There's nothing that guarantees we win, but I guarantee you if we lose, we will die. Welcome back to another episode of Please Call Me Crazy, brought to you by Free People Radio and powered by our favorite sponsor, TireGet.com. That's TireGet.com. If you have to buy tires from somebody, you might as well buy them from us. Help fund the movement, help support the movement. We believe in the freedom of movement, and that's exactly what the establishment wants to take from you now. I'm your host, Royce White, here in the belly of the beast, Minneapolis, Minnesota. The day is Wednesday, September 3rd. Year of our Lord, 2025. Again, tragic news coming out of the Twin Cities here in the last week or so with the shooting at Annunciation Catholic School here in Minneapolis. And we still extend our thoughts and prayers to those families and the children who lost their lives in that heinous and violent act of selfishness and evil. And we're going to talk a little bit about evil, some other evil things here on the podcast today, but I feel like these tragedies blow by us too quickly. You know, it happens so often that we tend to move on to the next thing pretty quickly. That's just news in general. That's why I always like to bring things back into the podcast and on social media. If you follow me, I often bring things back from history. I'm kind of a history enthusiast myself, so it's part of it is my own personal preference. But you have to remember your history. You have to remember your short history. You have to remember what happened 2 days ago now, right? Minnesota State Fair went well. We want to say thank you to everybody who stopped by the booth at the Minnesota State Fair. It was a huge success. Next year, after I win the primary, and we will win the primary, we'll get a primary, number one, but we will win the primary, and after we do, we'll gear up for a general election there at the State Fair again, and we'll probably double our investment there at the State Fair because we had such great success and so much incredible feedback from you out there in Minnesota, and people came from all across the country. I can't tell you how many people came up to the booth at the State Fair that didn't live in Minnesota, weren't from Minnesota, but yet they still watched the podcast or maybe listen and are familiar with my content online and whatnot. So we're thankful again to everybody who dropped by. The Jesus is King shirts were a huge success. You know, we made that decision kind of in the middle of the fair. This was before the shooting took place, which is kind of, ironic in some sense. But we had our initial lineup of T-shirts that we were giving away as promotion. We had the wheel out and you spin to win. A lot of people won T-shirts, more people than you would think. People were hitting the stars left and right and winning T-shirts. But on like the second day, this was last weekend, probably around Saturday or Sunday, I put in an order for the Jesus is King shirts to be made. And, and again, in the great tragedy of last week, we had that school shooting at the Catholic Church, and the shirts were just arriving on the day of or the day after the shooting took place. And, people just flocked to the booth like wildfire, for lack of a better phrase, to get the shirts. And we had the big Jesus is King poster up above the political, my booth. And we were probably the only political organization, or political booth or booth at all to really, promote the name of Jesus Christ out in the open like that. And we saw it. We heard it from a lot of people who came up. They stopped and they said, man, I stopped because of the Jesus is King sign you got hanging there. And we appreciate you saying that. And yes, we do love Jesus Christ. And this is a sad time for the Christian community, but We appreciate people who are showing strength and courage, and still and not being intimidated into denying or hiding their love uh, for Jesus. And it was just interesting to me because I had a woman say to me yesterday. I went to speak at a BPOU. I won't say which one, but I had a woman say to me because I was critical. I said it what has happened in the West and to Western society is largely at the feet of our Christian community. I know it's a hard week to have criticism of our Christian community, but we have to face facts, especially in times of crisis, in order to chart a course forward. Um, people people in this country will and have and will always be drawn towards temptation, yeah, whether it's sin and demonic possession, evil, selfish interest, all kinds of things. That's just that's kind of the natural conundrum of the human condition. The church was not only supposed to be a mechanism to introduce and guide people towards Christ and the eternal, but it was also supposed to be a guide for how to live here on earth. And that's why it says in the scripture, you are the salt of the earth. You lose your saltiness, you might as well cease to exist. And a lot of the Christian community, we've lost our saltiness in that we are intimidated, we're shy, we are afraid to profess our faith. We are afraid to talk about God in common, in certain company. And even just from a political standpoint, we have been sort of systematically, um, uh, systematically uh, disincentivized from talking about God. That was the 501c3 status, separation of church and state. If you're tax exempt, then you can't talk about God in the church. And President Donald Trump, I think, just recently, passed some legislation or at least some executive order that starts to allow churches to again be political, which I think is absolutely correct. But anyway, I was told that I was critical, and I said even our Minnesota GOP booth, after Catholic children are killed at school, didn't want to put Jesus' name up anywhere. Didn't have a single Jesus T-shirt in their in their booth. And I was critical of that, and I said something about it while I was speaking, and everybody kind of nodded in agreement because they understand that we have to get tougher, especially here in Minnesota, in a place where we're playing from behind. We're deep in our own end zone, as they say, is a sports analogy, but the football season's on the way. But um, I had one woman say that some people don't put the name of Jesus up because they don't want to sell the Savior. This blew my mind. I mean, the mental gymnastics that Christians have gone to and jumped through in order to justify their passive aggressive promotion of the gospel is quite staggering. It's not selling Jesus. First of all, let's just say this. I want to say this, and we're going to get going here with these reaction videos shortly. But I don't care who you are. I don't care what you've done. I don't care what your life circumstance is. It is never wrong to uplift the name of Christ. Never. Now, what do I mean by uplift? I mean that you are genuinely lifting up the name of Christ as a beacon to those who may need or may share a common love and respect and appreciation and submission to Christ. It is never wrong to hold up the name of Jesus Christ, ever. I don't care who you are. I don't care what you've done. You could be a convicted you could be a convicted felon who was tried and convicted for double homicide, or a burglar, or a prostitute, or an OnlyFans model, or whatever the case may be. You could be a homosexual. It is never wrong to uplift the name of Christ. Now, does that mean we condone all the behaviors of anybody who uplifts the name of Christ? Absolutely not. And it seems like a simple thing to separate, but it gets very hard for people. It feels like we're more inclined to shy away from uplifting the name of Christ out of a fear that we don't we don't meet his expectations, that we don't live up to the Christ-like way, and that's a mistake. That's a mistake. In fact, categorically, it's a great failure of Christian theology and an understanding of what it means to be Christian, because all of us will fall short. So if none of us are going to hold up the name of Christ unless we meet the standard that Christ has laid out for us, then Christ's name would disappear. Because there'd be not a man on earth who's worthy to put it to hold his name up. And just as history goes, if it wasn't for the Apostle Paul and the Apostle Peter and the rest of those in the early church that came out of Israel up through Asia Minor and made their way into Europe, this white woman that I was talking to yesterday wouldn't even be a Christian. If it wasn't for other people holding up the name of Christ and promoting Christ, and you could even say selling Christ, a lot of people say that the Apostle Paul was one of the greatest salesmen in human history, because he had a very strategic approach about his mission and spreading the gospel. But if it wasn't for people holding up the name of Christ, Christianity would have ceased to exist. That was part of the plan. That was part of the design. That was part of what Christ laid out. That's why after he died and rose, he went to certain people to promote his name. So even an example like that shows you some of the pitfalls that we're dealing with in the Christian community, and where we need to really tighten down the screws on the way we think about God and Christ, and certainly the courage that we have to um, uh, you know promote the gospel. All right. We're going to roll into some of these reaction videos here, starting with Mayor Jacob Fry. And as we're talking about now, this was in the wake of the shooting last week. Here we go.
And I have heard about a whole lot of hate that's being directed at our trans community. Anybody who is using this as an opportunity to villainize our trans community or any other community out there has lost their sense of common humanity. We should not be operating out of a place of hate for anyone. We should be operating from a place of love for our kids. Kids died today. This needs to be about them. This needs to be wrapping our arms around these families with every bit of love that we can possibly show. And I know that our Minneapolis family and well beyond is prepared to do exactly that. And so my message to everyone out there is, again, these families are experiencing some acute pain right now. But don't just think of these as somebody else's kids. Think of your own. Let's make sure that we're acting now to not just say it's never happening again, but ensure it doesn't.
Well, I mean, this is what you see from politicians. This is a very political statement, and he makes sure he makes sure to qualify his statement with his advocacy or his alliance with the LGBTQ movement and community, that so far as they see or hear no scrutiny or criticism in the wake of this school shooting, which many of you are already seeing all across social media. People are starting to question why it is that the trans community is exempt from a rightful and statistically backed questioning after this shooting, in the wake of this shooting, and some others that have happened across the country in recent years. And let's just be frank. Jacob Fry is everything that's wrong with American politics. He's everything that's wrong with state and local politics. He's a chameleon, and he's an individual that will say whatever he thinks is necessary, or do whatever he thinks is necessary to maintain his position. And there's just a lack of humility in that before God. There's a lack of genuineness, and there's a lack of sacred honor in the way that he approaches politics. And it's part of the reason why you see Minneapolis in the shape that it's in now. And Minneapolis is in bad shape. Two things I want to say. One is the trans community, by their own admittance, is suffering from a disproportionate amount of severe mental illness. Now, they will argue that the trans identity isn't a part of that mental illness, but even if we separate the two and we just talk about people's self-reported mental health struggles, whether it be anxiety, depression, psychosis, whatever the case may be, the trans community has some of the worst mental health, self-reported mental health struggles of any demographic in our country. So to, make the claim that there is no connection, no corollary between being transgender and maybe predisposed to a mental health that would, in this case, predicate a school shooting is completely dishonest in every way. It's completely dishonest. I mean, what makes it more dishonest, like I said on my show, I think it was Friday, did we do it? I'm not sure. I forgot now what day we did the last show. But like I said in the last episode about the school shooting, if it was a white man with a Donald Trump hat or a Donald Trump T-shirt or glory be to Donald Trump in his manifesto, he was a Donald Trump sycophant, they would have certainly said that Donald Trump, the MAGA movement, and the right wing of Republicans in America radicalized this individual, and they should be held accountable, or they should feel some sense of remorse and culpability in what happened at that school that day. The same way they try to make it about the Second Amendment. All of us who advocate for the Second Amendment, myself included, should feel some sense of guilt because of this shooting. Right here in the opening statement by our Minneapolis mayor, he makes sure that the trans community, the identity of trans people or the LGBTQ movement carries no responsibility whatsoever for what took place. And uh, it's just not rational. It's not even logical. Of course, there are a lot of things that go into what took place at the school shooting. I mean, at this school last week, in any school shooting. There are a lot of there are a lot of factors that go into it. It's not univariable. It's multivariate. There are a lot of things that go into it. But to argue that him being trans has nothing to do with it at all, or that the trans community or that the LGBTQ ideology or culture that is very prominent has nothing to do with it is absolutely dishonest. And these are the kind of people that are running our country and our city. They're running things. They're in charge. I mean, it should when you see a politician make a statement that's that dishonest, it should keep you up at night. It certainly does for me. That's why I decided to run. Let's run the next clip here.
Guess what? Love wins. Here you go.
Well, this is Tim Walz signing a bill to make Minnesota what he called a trans refuge state. Again, I don't even know what that means. Again, this is this strange political propaganda here in America that says trans people are under vicious attack. And first of all, there aren't that many trans people in America or anywhere for that matter. So I'm not quite sure how trans people are under some nonstop violent attack just by, just by statistical standards. There is no widespread persecution and hunt for trans people. In fact, I think in most cases, from what I've seen and what I've experienced, anytime you see a trans person in public, the impetus for people is to try and ignore them, is to try and avoid them, is to try and look away or try to move on and move forward with their day without having any real interaction because it's awkward. It's really awkward. Now, increasingly, the trans community or transgender activists or LGBTQ activists have tried to force the trans movement and trans people on everyone else. And in that instance, when trying to normalize something that's not normal, of course you're going to have more conflict or contact or confrontation with the general public. So again, Tim Walz, governor of our state. You just saw the Minneapolis mayor. Now you're looking at the governor of our state, and these are the people who are in charge. And you see what their priority is. And even if, and I don't want to try and, you know, I don't want to try and embellish what's going on. I'm not saying that this is all they think about or this is all they do. There is no other legislation that gets passed or any other government work that gets done, but there does seem to be a disproportionate emphasis on making the LGBTQ, uh, 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 you know, topic, front and center. And it's obviously happened in the schools, but it's happening in legislation. Again, it's happening with our elected officials, and we've been seeing it, right? It goes all the way up to Joe Biden and Barack Obama. We all have witnessed it, but now it's starting to hit home. Right here in Minnesota, you're starting to see the results of people who have dishonestly went about governing.
I don't know if you're trying to make this point either, but these two clips kind of show the point that there has to be a connection to the trans ideology because this shooter came from Minneapolis, which is seemingly the most accepting place to be if you're trans.
Well, that's a great point to make, actually. What he's saying is if Minnesota is such a refuge for trans people, then why is it that this trans individual felt so trapped or so persecuted or so unhappy that he needed to commit one of the most violent acts that we've seen all across the country in the last year or so? And these things happen more often than you realize, but every time they happen, it's a tragedy. I mean, it's a great tragedy. It's a tragedy of biblical proportions. Another thing I wanted to say about it is, we often, you'll hear people talk about violence, and this is in connection with the violence in our cities, our black communities, our inner cities all across the country. You'll hear people make reference to the statistical probability that you will encounter violence in a given place, city, whatever the case may be. This is a this is a false premise. This is a way to obfuscate and deflect from the reality. I saw somebody say, well, in the city of such and such, there are only 400 incidences per 100,000 people, right? 400 incidents of criminal violence per 100,000 people. This is a sleight of hand. This is a linguistical and conversational sleight of hand that is completely politically motivated, intended to deflect and distract from a standard that American citizens should have for their communities. So the question is not how many, incidences of violence there are per 100,000 people. The question is what amount of violence is acceptable? And also, what amount of violence has what amount of disproportional impact on the communities where it happens? Just like, by that logic, if we say, well, out of every kid in the school, only 2 ended up dead, so it's not that big of a deal. That's a ridiculous thing to say. That's completely and utterly reprehensible to say. Nobody would say that. But for some reason we say, well, if you live in the city of Chicago, you only have a 400 out of 100,000 people chance of getting mugged or robbed or shot and killed. That is not the standard. The standard is how much violence is acceptable, how much violence could be prevented, and what impact does the remaining violence have on the surrounding community? And it's a lot. The impact is great. Take the school, for example. All of those children at that school will forever have to live with what took place last week, and all the teachers, all their families, the people who attend that church that weren't even there that day probably, people that live in that surrounding neighborhood, people that live in the city of Minneapolis. People are affected by what a few people do. A few bad apples can spoil the bunch, right? Is a good old saying, for this example. Is like, yeah, okay, I know in the black community, are all the black people in Minneapolis involved in gang violence or drugs or drive-by shootings or whatever? No, of course not. But the few who are, the relatively small bunch who are, can terrorize a neighborhood. And the north side of Minneapolis has been terrorized for a long time by gang violence. And even more importantly, even within the gang community, there are only a few who do the disproportionate amount of violence. This is called the Pareto distribution for all of those nerds out there and the philosophical nerds out there in the audience. The Pareto distribution says, like, for example, in music, 10% of musicians, composers, make the majority or lion's share of music that everybody listens to or everybody copies from or everybody emulates, right? It's Beethoven and Bach, and these are the very few musicians. There were thousands and thousands and thousands of musicians during Beethoven's time, but only a few emerge and last throughout history. And it speaks to the disproportionate effect that usually a small group of very influential individuals has on the greater data set. The same thing is true in crime. You take a city, then you got gangs, then you got the few people inside the gangs that are actually the most violent and sort of psychotic or sociopathic. Now, increasingly, because of the culture, I would say that more who are involved in gang culture have the predisposition to be more violent. I would say that the circle or the number of people within the gang who are reaching a higher level of violence is starting to grow. And I would also say the same thing about school shootings, right? Is that number of people who are probably psychotic, sociopathic, very mentally ill, that would actually do a school shooting is increasing. And we got to start to look at why. Let's go to the next question. Next video.
The people who can't move on this, because that's the people who've transitioned their own children. So those people are going to be like, the Japanese soldiers who were on Pacific Islands and didn't know the war was over.
Right.
They've got to fight forever. This is another reason why this is the worst social contagion that we'll ever have experienced. A lot of people have done the worst thing that you could do, which is to harm their children irrevocably because of it. Those people will have to believe that they did the right thing for the rest of their lives, for their own sanity and for their own self-respect. So they'll still be fighting. Those people will do anything for the entire rest of their lives to destroy me and people like me, because people like me are a standing reproach to them. I don't want to be. I'm not talking directly to them. I don't spend my time bitching about them. But the fact is that just simply by saying we will never accept natal males in women's spaces, well, it's their son that we're talking about. And they've told their son that he can get himself sterilised and destroy his sexual function and women will accept him as a woman. And if we don't, there's no way back for them and their child. They've sold their child a bill of goods that they can't deliver on. And I'm the one who has to be bullied to try to force me to deliver on it. So those people are going to be the people who will keep this bloody movement going, I'm sorry to say, because they've everything to lose.
Wow. That is dark. Yeah, that's dark. That speaks to some things can't be undone, right? You can ask for forgiveness. Some things can be healed, but some things can never be undone. Some wounds don't heal, right? I mean, some wounds heal, but they leave deep, deep scars. And no pun intended. We're talking about mutilating people's natural God-given body, and part of the issue in all of this is, again, there is a lack of faith and a lack of love and even hope, you could say, in some sense. Is God made you perfect. God made you perfect exactly how you are, and there are some people who really do suffer from, severe disability, right? I mean, they're paralyzed from the neck down, or they don't have certain limbs, or cleft lip, and there's all of the cleft palate. There's all of these things, these sort of natural disabilities and deformations that occur across humanity. And we would even tell those people that they were made perfect. There used to be that if you were disability, you were considered defective, and the common practice was to discard those children. That wasn't so long ago, that if you were born with any defective qualities whatsoever, they just throw you in a pit. I mean, we've come a long way in society, and we've done well, I think, to say, wait, there's some humanity and dignity, even if this kid is going to live his life in a wheelchair. Some people would argue that. Be the same people who would argue for humane euthanization of the elders, or for anybody who asks for it, anybody who's in pain, anybody who suffers. But again, the thing that Christ did, and the thing that Christianity gives people, is suffering is not the baseline of human reality and human existence. The secular, non-believing, sort of scientific, cultural and political elite, and all of their academic thought leaders tend to say that suffering is the baseline of human existence, that you can only truly measure human existence, uh, 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 you know, through suffering. It's the one true common denominator. And while true in some sense that all of us are in some ways destined to experience some suffering, that's not the baseline reality. And if you think that, it's easy to become a nihilist. It's easy to say, why am I even doing this? This sucks. There's a flip side to the coin. There's beauty in the world. And it wouldn't be as beautiful if you didn't experience the suffering. So, what she pointed out there is, we're putting ourselves down a dangerous path by even pretending this is normal for an instant. By even conceding that this transgender movement is normal for an instant. There's nothing normal about it, and people are going to be damaged irrevocably by it. And we're creating a divide between people who want to deal with reality, and parents and activists and political parties and agendas that have to defend these things to an unforeseeable end. They have to defend it well beyond its efficacy. So even when the trans people come back 20 years later and say, I regret transitioning, I regret what I did. Where is the audience for them? Where's the voice for them? Where's the Jacob Fries and the Tim Waltzes for the people who transitioned and come back 20 years later and say it was the worst choice I ever made? Where is there should be lawsuits, and it should wait about 10 years. The lawsuits will be flying around like crazy. Question is, who are they going to sue? And the sad part is, they're not going to have anybody to sue other than the hospitals and the medical practitioners who did it. But the problem will be, then they've already signed away any liability for those institutions. But all of these politicians who greenlit this and supported it, they're responsible. You wait 10 years when these lawsuits start flying, these lawsuits that have no reconciliation to them, because there's no real legal mechanism to give them reciprocity. And then you see how many politicians and people that these individuals start going after. And I don't say that as I hope that's not the case, but I could see a scenario where in 10 years, when the trans community gets out of control, and it's even more proliferated, because now they say close to 1 million children or teens under the age of 17 identify as transgender.
How many was that?
Close to 1 million.
Oh my gosh.
In America.
Yeah, I'd love to find out what percentage that is, because I know for Gen Z, 25% are either gay or trans.
Yeah, you see what I mean? And I may not have the numbers right. I saw one infographic, but it's being pushed on them, and they're starting to identify with it. I said to somebody else, we're gonna move on here in a moment, but I made this point about the black communities. Yeah, there are problems in the black communities, and something needs to be done. Something needs to be forcefully done, which is why I support the National Guard going in to these black communities, because I understand that there's a sickness that pervades it, and it seems like it's cyclical by intent, right? It seems like there's a cycle of violence that is intentional. But you have to understand that these people were born and raised in Marxist, communist, Democrat hellholes. They don't know anything else. It's just like if I take a black kid and I drop him in China and he's raised by the Chinese, he's going to speak Chinese. He's going to like a Chinese diet. He's going to have Chinese customs. If I take a white person, I drop them in Venezuela, they're going to have Venezuelan, customs, culture, heritage. So we are greatly influenced by the way that we're raised and taught. So in a lot of these black communities, they don't know anything else. They haven't seen anything else. It's why the advent of social media and the Donald Trump movement has had such a profound impact on black people, and you're starting to see them slowly but surely go, whoa, these motherfuckers make a good point. Chicago is fucked up. Why are we giving all our tax money to the state of Illinois and to the city of Chicago and still have to live like this? The same thing is going to be true for the Gen Z and trans movement and ideology. Is if they're exposed to it in the schools, they will start to believe that they are trans. And even more scary is they will start to capitulate and sort of accept what they're being told just to be accepted. There used to be that you played sports because other people played sports, or you did arts, or you joined band and played instrument because other people joined band and played instrument, or you wanted to be in the school play because it was cool to be in the school play, or sometimes you wanted to get good grades because it was seen as, an achievement to get good grades. Sometimes you slacked off because all the cool kids didn't give a shit about grades. These are influences that you have as a young person in a school. So of course, if we start telling kids that there is no gender, you'll have kids that start going, well, hey, the cool thing is to have some new made up gender. I mean, it's just, come on, guys, what are we doing? We got to stop, nip this shit in the bud now. And I think we're starting to, but we got to keep going.
Trump said send the troops here. I think it's some crime down there for them. That's just people walking their dogs.
Case in point.
I think it's some crime over here. Hold on, wait, this is just, oh, nah. They just cutting this nice grass in this beautiful open field next to this beautiful lake right here with the skyline views in the back. Oh my goodness. My bad, I was looking for the crime that they were talking about in the city that's been voted best city 8 years in a row. My bad, I was looking for it. Oh, maybe it's in this nice little bird sanctuary that's right back here. I don't know. That's crazy, because I could have swore he said it was a whole lot of crime and we needed the troops to come here, man. I just can't see where. I don't know. Oh, wait, I think I finally found some crime. Is that just... Oh, no, just people just walking on this nice path on the lake. People be using the jog on in the mornings when they go on their morning run. Man, I swear. He said it was so much crime we needed these troops to come. But I'm telling you, I just can't find it. I don't know, gang. I don't know, gang.
I could find a park in Minneapolis and walk around it, and it'd look rather nice.
I mean, the level of dishonesty in this video clip is so, I mean, it actually makes me sick to my stomach, really. These kind of people need their ass kicked, seriously. These kind of people have not had their ass kicked before. They've never been punched in the mouth, or they haven't been punched in the mouth hard enough. Because when you get punched in the mouth hard enough, you start to realize there's consequences to your actions, and you don't really, you're careful not to be this dishonest, just on the basis that somebody may punch you in the fucking head for being this dishonest, for being this asinine, right? But you can do this kind of stuff on social media. It's another part of the problem of our modern society. There's nothing more I don't think I've seen a more dishonest video. This is more dishonest than Jacob Fry. Seriously. This is a more dishonest video than Jacob Fry and Tim Waltz. To go to the boardwalk of Chicago, to go to the boardwalk of Chicago and pretend that that the parks there in Chicago, the beautiful parks right up on the lake that has the highest property value and probably is well protected by the police, has a heavy police presence. I know it does because I've been to Chicago many, many times. The $1 million homes, the benefactors of the political elite and corruption in this country make sure that their neighborhoods are well policed and protected. It's easy to go to those places and say, "Oh, well, this isn't that bad." To act like that's a representation of all of Chicago is just it's a lie. And the scary thing is he actually believes he's so sick and twisted in his head, he either one actually wants people to believe that, or two, he's convinced himself that that's true. Hence the mental health crisis we really fake. It's one thing to gaslight other people. It's another thing to gaslight yourself. And I think a lot of people are so sick in the head, they're actually gaslighting themselves. He may actually believe that's an honest take on what's going on in Chicago. But then you almost realize that there's no way he believes it because at the end he goes, "Come on, gang. Come on, gang." I mean, when the modern slang of young people is to refer to each other as gang, it kind of says everything that's wrong with the culture. Right? Come on, gang. It used to be like, "Come on, man. Come on, dude. All right, come on, my guy. Come on, G." Now it's "come on, gang." We're all part of the fucking gang culture. This guy is a fucking sellout. I mean, it's embarrassing. Somebody should slap this fucking dude. Seriously. And I don't like to promote violence, but some shit is there's such a lack of sacred honor. You should be beat up. You should. I don't even understand that, man. I don't understand. You could go anywhere. You could go to look what's happening in D.C. Look at all the black people in D.C. saying, "Look at the streets." I saw 3 videos of black people just riding through places in D.C. that they normally ride through and saying, "Look at how clean the street." The cleanliness. Not even talking about the people who are out on the street or the crime or anything like, just how clean the streets are. And you got to be careful now because China uses the same sort of authoritarian method of government to make sure that there are no homeless on the streets. And with China, you kind of wonder where some of these homeless people end up. China has sort of a history of black bagging you, tagging you, and throwing you in the incinerator. So, and there is a strange crisis in this country of missing children. Still have to be, weary that everything isn't always as it seems. But it's amazing how much a little bit of accountability makes a whole hell of a lot of a difference. And do I think they're picking up random people homeless in D.C. and killing them and hiding them? No, I don't. No, I honestly don't. When you tell people, "Hey, we're not going to let you be out on the corner getting drunk," and you see people, they're on drugs and they're zombie drug, trank, right? Is the new zombie drug. These people are on trank and they're hunched over like zombies, standing up conscious. They're passed out, they're comatose, but they're still standing up. I don't know if we could even find a video of it. Maybe we can play it at the very end, but we'll play it to go out, right? Because it is a great example of just how bad things have become in our country. And I see it downtown St. Paul.
Oh yeah, dude. So many people be fent folding.
Downtown St. Paul, you go down. Remember, I was born in '91. I'm the first U.S. Senate nominee born in the 1990s, the first of my generation. And there was drugs in the 90s. There was crack in the 90s. There was meth. There were a bunch of drugs in the 90s. Never before have I seen so many people standing up, hunched over, comatose. I mean, it's literally a new synthetic, souped up drug. And so for us to tell those people, listen, we're not even gonna let you paint the sidewalk with your degeneracy is damn right. It's damn right. Get your ass off this. It'd be the same way if your kid was laying around the house all day, just had his room a mess and a slob, and he's got, Cheeto dust all over his face and his fingers, and he's rubbing on his shirt, and he's just a slob. He's a mess. Get your ass up and clean this room up and clean yourself up. That's exactly what we should be telling homeless people. Get your ass off the corner. We're not going to let you, ruin this great city with your, mental health crisis or drug crisis, drug abuse.
Here's that photo.
There you go, right there. I mean, you guys just hunched over. It's horrifying. We're not going to let you, deface our city with your crisis. Check yourself into a program, go to a shelter, whatever the case may be. Should we have more mental health institutions and shelters? Sure, there's an argument for that. And do we have to make sure they don't end up like the mental health hospitals we had back in the 70s when they were closed initially? Yeah. Yeah, there's a reason why the mental health hospitals were closed, because people were being violated in them, right? I mean, they were being mistreated. They were lobotomizing people and doing crazy shit that they should have never been allowed to do. But again, sometimes you throw the baby out with the bathwater. You throw the entire apple cart out, and that doesn't work either. So, this, again, back to this young man, you're full of shit. You are full of shit, and we all see right through it. Yeah, you can go to Chicago and go to, Michigan Ave and have a great time. And the reason why Chicago is ranked one of the best cities in the country is because it's got a Midwestern feel, but it has a New York City size and access to the commercial, of New York City. It's a Midwest New York City is what it is. Plus, it's on a lake, a beautiful lake, and Lake Michigan is beautiful. But at the end of the day, the crime on the south side and west side of Chicago is out of fucking control. How dare you? I mean, what kind of fucking racket is it to go to the high price, uppity, yuppie, white part of Chicago that is, protected by police and property tax through the wazoo? This is for the elite of the elite. You couldn't live there unless you can afford $1 million house, and say that's a representation of how all the working class citizens, especially black in Chicago, live. You're full of fucking shit. And anybody who lives in a black community anywhere all over, I could go to Summit Avenue in St. Paul and walk up and down Summit Avenue all day long and be in awe of the great Victorian architecture, all the old 100-year-old Victorian homes there on Summit Avenue in St. Paul. I could walk down to the Capitol, less today, but I could walk down to our beautiful Capitol and be in awe of the Capitol architecture. But I can also walk right up the street to White Castle on Rice Street and get my noggin split for getting in the way of some random drug deal. I'm from Frogtown. I'm from Rondo. I could take a rock from Crocus Hill, where the great cathedral is, and damn near hit the Capitol. And if I go a few blocks up, I'm in the middle of a crack neighborhood. This is the reality. So don't think you could try and fucking misrepresent what's going on in these inner cities. Shame on you.
You all sit up there and said you will not allow Trump to come in here and get these illegals. Yeah, you can smile. We're in $1 billion deficit. And you spent half of our money, half of that on illegals. You campaigned and doubled down that you would not raise property taxes.
I won't raise your property taxes.
You wanted to raise our taxes $300 million. They shut it down. Now we back here for $150 million. Okay. See, this is what we asking now. Since you want to crash out, some of y'all say y'all willing to go to jail for it. Trump, Tom Homan, make an example out this Negro right here first. Please come here first, because you know what? We're going to help you. We want to forensic.
Ma'am, I would ask that you keep your, hold on a second, stop her time. Stop her time.
Exactly right. Again, the people are coming, right? There's some black people who understand. They lived in these places. They come from these places. We're not going to let some uppity, yuppie, Ivy League wannabe mayor tell us, don't believe our lying eyes. We are from the places that you lie to us about. We're from there. We grew up there. We had at birthdays and funerals and wakes and barbecues. We played sports there. We are from the place you are trying to lie to us about. And you can argue that, oh, well, this is racism. This is racism. This is only Donald Trump trying to be racist and impose his fascist ideology on black people. No, it's not. No, it's not. Black people have been terrorized by the crime in inner cities. We've had to live with it unnecessarily for many generations. And it's about damn time we do something about it. We pay enough damn tax money. We pay enough in. We're in debt. If we're going to be in debt, if every citizen is going to be $200,000 in debt, if every citizen's grandchild is going to be born $250,000 in debt, the least we could do is have some assistance, some law enforcement assistance, so that your child that's born doesn't get hit by a stray bullet for no fucking reason. Just because these kids don't have any sense and then they don't have anything better to do. They're not inspired for greatness. That's make America great again. Inspire our young people to be something more than, what's up, gang? What's up, gang? It's ridiculous. And the music is just as bad as pop the pill, shot my ops, and blah, 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 blah. You're not fucking cool. You're not cool. And then it's those guys who are sitting in the courtroom crying to their mama, passing out when they get 100 years. And it's those guys that are getting, pardon my language, but they're getting taken advantage of when they're behind the prison walls. It's real easy to be a tough guy when you got an automatic weapon, when you got to use your bare hands, when you got to fight for yourself and fend for yourself. Then we see how tough people really are. This is the reality of Black America. We got to get serious about it. And I'm proud that a Black woman stood up, and I'm proud that she said it the way she said it, and I'm proud that she used the word Negro. This Negro right here. And of course, the uppity mayor is going to, don't use, make sure that your language is appropriate. You see the corollary, Tanner, between the Christian community and the sort of white evangelicals who criticize me for using profanity, say that I'm too harsh or too brash. And then you get the one Black woman, then they'll criticize the Black community. But when you get the one Black woman that actually stands up and calls these people out, they stop her for not being appropriate with their language.
Yeah, please
right?
lower your voice.
Lower your voice. Be nice. Be cordial. Be respectful. Fuck you. Fuck you, people. Fuck you. You let this shit get this way. We're done with it. We're going to be just as loud and just as brash and just as just as aggressive as these people are. Somebody said to me the other day a very, very, very important cultural observation. There are psychotic and sociopathic people. What keeps them at bay are highly disagreeable, highly aggressive men. Men who are highly disagreeable and highly aggressive. Donald Trump's one of them. Even in his later age. I'm certainly one of them. Steve Bannon is certainly one of them. Alex Jones is one of them. There are a lot of them. I just went through the short list, but there are a lot of, but that highly aggressive, disagreeable men keep the sociopaths and the psychopaths at bay. And that's the problem with stripping your culture and your society of genuine, authentic, healthy masculinity. Oh, masculinity is a problem, aggressiveness, and we don't want kids to be bullied or have to deal with any type of controversy or conflict. That's the problem with it. There's nobody left to keep the psychopaths in check. Hence, this mayor here, who he's just basically conceded his city to all of the most psychopathic and sociopathic individuals walking around with a firearm. It's not the firearm's problem. It's him. He's weak. His leadership is weak. The people who are under him, they feed off of and take follow of his weak leadership, and that's the problem. That's why D.C. got cleaned up. D.C. got cleaned up because Donald Trump showed strong leadership. He didn't wait. He didn't wait for a town hall consensus. He said, I'm driving down the street. I see the problem. I see it. It's right in front of me. I don't need a think tank or I don't need a some type of focus group. I don't need a focus group to diagnose this problem and do something about it. We're doing something about it. National Guard, we're deploying you. Get these people off these streets. Boom. You got peace and quiet in D.C. for the last 3 weeks. It's unprecedented. Even the mayor, we think we're going to show a video here of the D.C. mayor, right?
Yeah.
Even the D.C. mayor said, you know, we got to thank Donald. She held her nose, right, because she's in part of the woke propaganda. But even the D.C. mayor said, you know, we greatly appreciate the surge of officers. I bet you fucking do. I bet you fucking do. Why don't the mayor of D.C. call the mayor of Chicago and tell him to pull his head out of his ass? Go ahead. Let's run this video.
We greatly appreciate the surge of officers that enhance what MPD has been able to do in this city. The most significant thing that we are highlighting today is the area of crime that was most troubling for us in 2023. Now, we have driven it down over the last years, but I'm going to get my glasses so I can make sure I can see it correctly. But for carjackings, the difference between this period, this 20-day period of this federal surge and last year represents a 87% reduction in carjackings in Washington, D.C.
Hey,
we know that
pause
when
it. Pause it. We don't have to go further. Remember, believe the science. Remember, believe the stats. Remember, look at the numbers. Where are your statistics? Well, there are your statistics right there. All you liberal, atheist, secular, scientific method commies. There are your statistics right there. Whether we like it or not, whether we like the police presence or not, whether we like the National Guard or not, whether we like Donald Trump and Republicans and MAGA or not, we created a situation in D.C., and when I say we, I'm largely talking about black people, but all the other Democrat, liberal, white, whites that contributed to it or that oversaw it, that governed over it, we created a situation where crime was afoot, and for whatever combination of circumstances, deploying the National Guard there has seemed to reduce carjackings by 87%. Right, Tanner?
It's just like the border thing. Once Trump took office, the border crossings dropped.
Hey, I don't know what to tell you. You cannot like it. Hell, I don't even like it. I don't like the idea of the federal government having to send troops or the National Guard into cities. My American citizen, my American DNA of self-governance says, whoa, hold on. But the facts are the facts, and the truth is the truth. It's kind of like I said in my last episode. When somebody says something about you, your actions get to determine whether or not it's true. And that is a profound IQ point I think people have to start to accept. Somebody says that I'm a piece of shit. I get a chance every day to prove that I'm not. Or I can prove that I am. Now, they may be wrong in their description or definition of what a piece of shit is, what constitutes being a piece of shit. That's one thing. But there is also, you could be a piece of shit, but you could also change it. Right? And again, I think people don't really understand. Racism becomes true when we behave the way that they say that we behave, whoever the they is. And it's not just black people, because I'll tell you, and I said this the other day at the fair, because I had a lot of people come up to me that are from the west side of St. Paul, which is a heavy, Mexican community. My great-grandmother helped build the church Our Lady of Guadalupe on the west side, which is a Mexican Catholic parish. So I had a lot of Mexican folks come up to me, and we talked about the Mexican community and just how, the history of the Mexican and black, the brown and black alliance happened. See, because there was a time back when my great-grandmother was younger where marrying a black man would get you disowned from your Mexican family. And there's still a lot of unspoken, subtle racism that goes on between the black and Mexican community. Now, because of certain political agendas and strategic sort of marketing and messaging and narrative, the black and brown communities have been pushed together under the Democrat umbrella. But there was serious cultural conflict and tension between the black communities and Mexican communities, and you're starting to see it reemerge, actually. Especially in the inner cities where there's a lot of gang violence, or let's say in the prisons. In the prisons, there's still a lot of in fact, it's funny, in the prisons, the Mexicans and the whites are, team up. A lot of people wouldn't know this. And I'm not the Mex, but the Latinos in prison. You'll see this in a lot of prisons across the country. The Mexican car and the white car have to team up because there's so many more blacks. So just out of survival, they have to kind of join together in certain instances when there's real beef between the races. In prisons, if you think racism doesn't exist, for all my conservatives that say, well, racism isn't real, you go to a state penitentiary and you'll see that people organize themselves by race. There ain't no doubt about it. You could come into a penitentiary, saying you're whoever you want, claiming you're whatever you want. You're going to get in line with the race car when you get to prison, or you're going to find yourself in some problems. Now, you could choose to go the religious route or the Muslim route, and they have their own sort of, exemptions and things like that. But prison is certainly still divided into race. And my point in bringing that all up is, even in the Mexican community, there was a time not too long ago where my grandmother marrying a black man had her disowned in her family and had her estranged from her Mexican family for a short time. Since been reconciled, because that has changed. But regardless, whether you're Mexican, whether you're black, whether you're white, whether you're Christian, Jewish, Muslim, whatever you are, if people have a bias about you, and your actions confirm that bias, we call that perpetuating the stereotype. And when you were young, especially as a young black man, if you were fortunate, you had people in your life that encouraged you not to perpetuate the stereotypes about black people. And some of them went too far. Some of them started to talk white, right? Some of them started to talk like they were from the country club. They tried so hard not to perpetuate the stereotype. They started to imitate white people. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying, Tanner? There's a difference, right? I'm black, but I talk normal. And you're like, what is normal? It's like, I talk like a black guy who is articulate. I mean, I'm just an articulate black guy. Barack Obama talks like he was raised in the Ivy League, right? He talks like a lawyer. And a lot of lawyers tend to, you'll find some lawyers that just talk normal, but there's a lawyer speak. There's a King's English. There's a proper way to talk. And some black people were encouraged so hard not to perpetuate the stereotype being spoken about with regards to race, that they don't even want to associate with anything blackness, even the way that they talk. And I think some of that went too far, honestly. I do. That's where you find a lot of these buttoned up black conservatives who wear the silk tie and the lapel pin in there tend to be neocon rhinos, even some of the black Republicans, right? But you got to understand, I get it. I get where their mentality was. They were so afraid of living up to the connotations about black people in this country. They went completely opposite. Now, some people would call them Uncle Toms and Coons. Some people call me Uncle Tom and Coon just for voting Republican or running as a Republican. Just so happens I come from a crack neighborhood, so you can't really tell me what it means to be black. I had to tell a few white liberals at the state fair this past week that you can't tell me what it means to be black or live in the hood. I grew up in the hood. You may grew up in Minneapolis, but you probably grew up in the affluent art quarter district or whatever, Minneapolis. You didn't grow up where I grew up. That just, it's a reality. Not to make it about race or where you grew up, but what's true is true. If you grew up on Summit Hill, you had a whole different life experience of if you grew up on Dale and Selby. That's just a matter of fact. So my whole point in even saying all of that was don't live up to the racism. Sure, there's racism. If I'm a white person in this country and I say, man, black neighborhoods are dangerous. Black people are dangerous. Like I said about Nick Fuentes. If he says black people are dangerous, is it true? Yes. It's not to say all black people are dangerous. And if he said all black people are dangerous, then he knows it's not true. I know it's not true. You know it's not true. But we should be able to say black people. It's like we say, white people, white liberal women are crazy. We should be able to say white liberal women. We should be able to say Jews. We should be able to say Christians. We should be able to say Muslims. We're not going to accept Sharia law in this country. We should be able to say Muslims, are in favor of Sharia law, because Muslims are the only ones in favor of Sharia law. If I can't say Muslims, I can't talk about Sharia law. And don't ever think we're stupid enough to let you PC police censor our conversation to not talk about reality. That's where political correctness went wrong. That's where it goes wrong. That's where it's dangerous. It's not to say we shouldn't try and be nice, civil. It's to say there's certain things we have to say, and as soon as the PC police tell us that we can't say certain things, it might be because they're concerned for a given group of people, but it also could be that they don't want us to talk about something we need to talk about. And it's damn true of the black community. Niggas, I love when that black woman stood up and said, get this Negro right here, right? And amen. Amen, sister. Amen. Let's go to the next video. We're almost done here.
I did talk to the team, and we have a couple of things that I just want to lay out for all of you and on what the DC bill does. It reduces maximum penalties.
Wait, pause it. Does everybody see the difference between how, a former House press secretary, the secretary of the press secretary, Jean-Pierre talks and the way that I talk? I mean, you can just write a tenor.
Oh, yeah.
Do you notice the difference?
Yeah, I can sit across the fire and have a conversation with you. I don't think I'd be able to hold a conversation with this lady.
I'm just talking about the tonality.
Oh.
Right. Do you notice the difference in tonality between me and Jean-Pierre?
Yeah, I would say that you said it correct. It's that lawyer talk.
She has lawyer speak.
Yeah.
Right. There's like this proper kind of legalese that they and it's really not even about the law. It's really a sort of a public performance type of liability speak, right? It's like, I don't want to say the wrong things because I'm always on the record and there could be consequences if I misspeak, right? So they're like, there's like a properness to it that's not authentic. It just doesn't have any authenticity to it. I'm not even talking about, the sound of her voice or the depth of her voice or any, but it just doesn't have any real authenticity. And you tend to get this from people like Jean-Pierre, who are touted as being very well educated, right? You get a lot of these folks from, I think that's why people are surprised by me in some sense, because, I'm sort of an anomaly, a unicorn, in that I was fortunate enough to come up in a family that didn't come from Ivy League or great collegiate success, but they are very well-spoken, very articulate individuals, very charismatic individuals. My mom, my grandmother, my grandfather on both sides. My father actually did graduate from college, but he wasn't an Ivy Leaguer, right? He's kind of what you would call a blue-collar college, college graduate. But so I was fortunate enough to come up in a way where I am articulate, but I'm not an Ivy Leaguer, right? And so I'm kind of an anomaly in that way if you look en masse. But again, it's like Donald Trump. Look at Donald Trump. And I don't know if Donald Trump went to an Ivy League school or not, but he doesn't talk like a lawyer.
Oh yeah, you don't care what he says at all. He's not thinking
right?
about the record. He's
Right.
just letting his mind
And I don't
lead.
know, he too, like, because he probably he came from high society, right? His dad was wealthy, and he came from that sort of upper echelon of that New York culture and whatnot. And he went to private school and things like that. But even he, see, it's not necessarily how you come up that contributes to it, but it's more about how genuine you are as a person. And when you're genuine, you don't talk like this. You just don't. I want a press secretary that just talks normal. Can we get one? And look, I like the press secretary that's in now. She's okay, right? My one criticism is she goes hammer sometimes. Sometimes she loses the nicety, right? And she just kind of lays in. And I love that about her. I think her name is
Oh my
Lavette.
gosh. Yeah.
What's her name?
Let me search up real
Bring her
quick.
name up. I'm sorry. I see her all the time. I can see her face clear as day. Pretty blonde woman. And this Jean Pierre, she's a good looking woman too. I'm not saying anything about how she
Caroline
looks.
is her first name.
Caroline Levitt.
Yep.
That's her name. Okay, yeah. So, I'm not saying anything about how she looks, but let's just talk about it in general. This whole press secretary position is kind of predicated around this public performance.
Yeah.
Okay, but what she's saying, there's a difference. There's a difference if I come to the podium one day and I say, hey, listen, the president of the United States is not going to be making any public appearances today because he's, dealing with a virus or, he's dealing with some dehydration or whatever the case may be. I give general updates to the media. And then there's being a black woman who comes to the podium and tries to brag almost about policies that reduce maximum penalties for violent crimes. And I say it in a matter-of-fact, kind of uppity tone, as though you should accept it because I'm saying it properly, right? It's like, what did you just fucking say? Did you just fucking say? Listen to the clip. Now let's listen to the clip.
Murders and other homicides, armed home invasion
Start it over
burglaries,
for me.
armed. I did talk to the team, and we have a couple of things that I just want to lay out for all of you and on what the DC bill does. It reduces maximum penalties for offenses like murders and other homicides, armed home invasion burglaries, armed carjackings, as I mentioned, armed robberies, unlawful gun possession, and some sexual assault offenses.
Sometimes I'm convinced she goes home just pissed. They had me walk out there and try to sell this. She's like stumbling over her words.
But here's the thing. My first instinct is this even real? we gotta double check because we're living in that era, right?
Yeah, that's true.
It wouldn't shock me if this wasn't real, but it certainly doesn't shock me if it is. It looks real. I didn't see it live, and now if you didn't see a video live, you got to question whether or not it's real, right?
Yeah.
But it certainly wouldn't shock me if this was real. It wouldn't shock me if it was AI either. It wouldn't shock me if it was AI because it's so fucking ridiculous. I can't even believe what I'm hearing. My first instinct is this shit must be fake. That's how crazy. The DC bill reduces maximum penalty for all the worst crimes. Armed burglary, armed robbery, armed home invasion, homicide. What the fuck is going on? What was this? What was this DC bill? We need to take a deep dive into this DC bill, and that'll hopefully shed some light on what the fuck is going on here. This is horrifying. And then you go, well, what are the corollaries between what's happening in DC or what was happening in DC before Donald Trump? But look at what she said. Look at what they did. They literally reduced the penalty. When you reduce the penalty, whether it's announced to the public or not, criminals are going to find out that there is a new leniency around certain things, and they're going to test those limits. You have to be tough with people. It's just like raising kids. It's the same thing with criminals. Not to say, every little toddler, child, teenager is a little criminal, but
it's human nature.
They push the limits, right? They push the line. They try and see what they can get away with. That's why you got to be firm with them. And criminals, the sad part is, your child might stay out a little bit past curfew. That's one thing. But when people are pushing the limit of armed robbery, and then, okay, I shoot a guy in the leg, and his femoral artery, bleeds out because I'm stupid enough to think if I shoot him in the leg that means he's not going to die, then he dies anyway. These are the things that start an avalanche, and before you know it, you got, trank zombies out there on the streets. Let's go to the next clip.
You get up in the morning and you doom scroll through things, and although I will say this, the last few days you woke up thinking there might be news. Just saying. There will be news sometime, just so you know, there will be news.
Yeah, of course. I mean, there you go. Belly of the beast. When we say it for a reason. Belly of the beast. There's our state governor, our Minnesota governor, making a joke, very distasteful joke about the rumors regarding President Trump's health. And what would we expect from a guy who lied about his valor? I mean, any guy who's a stolen valor perpetrator would think that this is okay. Would think that this is funny. Even more scary, the people in the audience who kind of chuckled at it. It's not funny. If President, a lot of them, but it's not even funny to them. A lot of them hope that President Trump dies. A lot of them would rejoice if President Trump were to die. That's just the reality. And the same is true about a lot of you out there in the audience. If a lot of you deplorables just cease to exist or were taken off to a concentration camp, many on the left, many in the Democrat Party would rejoice as a huge burden has been lifted from our society. And you better remember that every single time you listen to one of these political stories, every single time you go to cast a ballot, every time you participate in the political process, remember, there are political agendas that would just as soon see you cease to exist with no remorse whatsoever.
Going in 3, 2, 1.
Picture us like a pressure cooker. What happens when the pressure cooker gets too pressurized, right? It explodes. I think this is a good way for us to be able to, in a healthy way, release whatever we have going on inside out into the void. I was having a real bad day with my partner one day. We were walking by the lake. I just said to her, "Hey, do you want to go scream by the lake?" And she was like, "Yes, let's do it." There were a few people sitting around, and I just said, "Hey, look, we're about to scream into the lake. I'm so sorry to bother you. Do you want to join us?" And they were like, "Yes, absolutely." So, and we screamed into the lake. A few people cried, and then I looked right at my girlfriend. I was like, "I think this is something that we got to start." And Scream Club was born.
The Scream Club.
I think praying works just as good too.
I'm gonna be honest. I'm not saying that screaming doesn't work. It's not a good release of pent up aggression and emotion and whatnot. I'm not saying that a good cry isn't necessary or we should be ashamed of. What I'm saying is every time I see one of these liberal guys with a 6-panel hat, I know exactly what we're dealing with. I can't tell you. It's like the progressive hipster uniform. Seriously, and I just came from a state fair where there's 1.5 million people that come through it in 12 days. So I did a lot of people watching, and it's usually these guys that walk by the booth and they look and they're with their girlfriend, their partner. I mean, any guy who calls his girlfriend his partner, right away. Okay. She's not your partner, buddy. Okay, she's your girlfriend, she's your fiance, she's your wife. It's simple. Your partner is like some type of quasi capitulation to all of the men and women who have same gender lovers. That's what it is, right? My partner. We don't want to call her a woman. We don't want to, it's just corny. And these are the guys that they walk by and they're with their girlfriend. And, and I'll watch the girlfriend look at the booth first and see the Royce White for Senate and see the MAGA hats and the things like that. And she'll make some snide, underhanded, comment. You could just read her lips, face frowns up. And then he looks back and he's like, yeah, shh. And then every once in a while, one will be brave enough to go to really want to impress his partner and go, Donald Trump sucks. And, being the confrontational guy that I am, I'd stick my head out of the booth and go, Trump won, commie, deal with it. And every once in a while, they'd stop and come back And, you know, they'd get the sense that because I'm a political candidate, they can walk up and kind of bully and torment and say whatever the fuck they want. And that's the day that they find out that not all political candidates are made equal, right? And we usually just ran them off. But we stood our ground. We voted for Donald Trump. We like what Donald Trump is doing. You know, we love Jesus. We're gonna continue to promote Jesus' name. You deal with it. We don't like you liberals and your policies, and you're not gonna tell us how to be black. And guess what? We're not joining the fucking Scream Club. It's, you know, again, these are false catharsis. That's what it is. It's a false catharsis. If you need to scream into the you know, into the lake, what about everybody else's peace and sanity? What if I wanted to walk to the lake and just enjoy a nice walk at the lake, a nice peaceful, quiet, tranquil walk at the lake? It's narcissism, right? I mean, when you really get down to it, it's a form of, you know why prayer is so powerful? One of the reasons prayer is so powerful is because it's peaceful and it's personal in its nature, right? You know, you get if you really reach far enough, you can extrapolate out how the idea that your angst or despair, your frustration in life should disrupt everybody else leads to you believing it's okay or rational to shoot up a school because you're in pain. See, in Christianity, we pray and we deal with God on our own, personal. And this do as thou will mentality, people tend to disregard the lives of others. And that's exactly what our country has become. Let's go to this video.
You are gonna cheat on me soon. I know, because I'm an empath.
I was not gonna cheat on you.
I had
What are
to
you
cheat on you
talking about?
because you were literally gonna cheat on me.
Sorry. Go, get out.
Close
Get
the
out.
door.
Go,
Shut the
get
door.
out.
Shut
I
it.
wasn't gonna cheat on you. What are
And now
talking
you
about?
don't believe me, so I don't trust you. And now I'm hurt and confused. So just leave.
What the?
You're
what are you
so
talking about?
manipulative.
Oh
And
my
you're
God.
So toxic.
I mean, what can I even say about that? Speaks for itself. Now, how many people thinks that this young lady voted for Donald Trump? Drop it in the comments if you're still with us long enough to see this part of the video. How many people believe that this young woman was a Donald Trump voter? How many people think that that on average anybody who acted that way or used that type of language to justify their behavior, that behavior, cheating on their boyfriend, and we don't know if it's true. We don't know if it's real. It might be another AI video, it might be a skit, might have been a joke. But we know that the type is real. We definitely know the type that talk about empath and feelings and vibes and frequencies and, you know, all these things that get kind of amalgamated into this woke esoteric way of thinking. We know that it's real. How many of those people you think voted for Donald Trump? And if it is real, man, how bad do you feel for that guy?
Right.
I mean, but at the same time, you feel bad for him, but you can tell that there is a softness and a nicety to him because of the situation and his reaction. You know, his reaction is to break out into tears and to kind of fall apart when he didn't process the reality quick enough.
No, he was trying to figure out what was going on.
Dude, but you know what's going on. Your woman's in bed with another guy. She lied to you, dude. That's the reality. Now you get to make a decision, a man decision. Do you want to see, is she worth seeing past the mistake and staying there anyway and dealing with it and setting new boundaries and reorganizing the nature of the relationship so that you feel comfortable and continue on to try and influence that young lady to become a better woman? And that's a choice some people make. Trust me, there are a lot of couples out here, a lot of marriages where men have had to deal with their wife or girlfriend being unfaithful or unloyal and still stayed with them and been able to reconcile things and develop a good relationship. Is it my prescription that you would do that? No, especially with a woman like that, because she seems like she's actually on the verge of a psychotic episode,
Yeah, there's
break.
no self accountability.
Yeah, that's different. There's come on, there's a difference, right? There's a woman. I was hanging out with my friends. We went out to the club. I got drunk. We went back with these guys to the house. We thought we were just gonna hang out, and some other stuff went down. Blah blah blah. That's one thing. This was like a premeditated, psychologically justified, narcissistic reason to cheat on this guy. Crazy, and then blame the guy for it in real time. I mean, this is high level narcissism, but even in that moment, you got to process that shit, dude, and be like, yo, this is happening. I'm not gonna fucking fall apart. And this dude's putting his pants on. And then there's a big picture of Squidward on the back wall. I mean, there's just so much shit going on in that video. But do you think, let's take a step back from her. Out of the 3 people in the video, do you think any of them voted for Donald Trump?
No.
Do you think so, Tanner?
I don't know.
Not one person in that video. If there's one guy who voted for Donald Trump, it's probably the guy who was getting up leaving.
He's the one putting his pants back on.
I don't say that to be, mean or make a bad situation a joke, but funny enough, it's probably true, right? If there's one guy who voted for Trump, it's probably the guy who's getting up, putting his pants on and leaving. And that says something dark about our culture. But yeah, I mean, that's the liberal scream club, right? Tanner does a great job of putting these videos together in sequence. It's like amazing. Every one seems to roll into the next. And here we go again. We got, is this the last video?
Last video.
All right, last video here. We're right at an hour and a half. Billie Eilish. And you know what, guys? I got to say, I love music. I love the music industry. I don't love the industry. I love the music that's come from the industry. I'm a music enthusiast. If you know me personally, you know that I'm very into music. I grew up around Jelly Bean Johnson and The Time and the Prince crew and LaSalle Gabriel we had on the podcast. So, I grew up around what is referred to as the Minnesota sound of the music of music history. And I love music. I have a great appreciation for a wide variety of music. And I have to say that one of the most upsetting things is this use of music to promote demonic and satanic images. And I don't understand. I mean, and I get it. It's kind of like counterculture. It's more liberal scream club shit. It's like, God has been too much of a priority in recent history and Western civilization and post-Enlightenment Europe and beyond. Like, God has been too much of the focal point. So everything that humans have done wrong, again, in that narcissistic mentality, has to be on God, right? It's not on us. We didn't fuck up society. We aren't flawed. It's God's fault, right? We place too much of an emphasis on God. And so now the counterculture thing is to be demonic, right? Is to promote Satan and demonic possession and gargoyles and ghouls and vampires. And, I get it. It's like sexy. Like I'm rebellious, right? It's rebellious to dress up as a devil on, what is it, Halloween, right? A sexy devil, right? With the tail, with the spade on the end, Mephistopheles. It's sexy. It's not that sexy. And what's even scarier is it's getting less and less sexy. You're going to see here with this Billie Eilish example, it ain't even sexy no more. It used to be like, hey, I'm a sexy vampire, right? Now it's like, I'm dripping in acid and let's watch it.
All the good girls go to hell, 'cause even God herself has enemies.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
She'll want the devil on your team.
What kind of foolishness?
I mean, I don't know. This seems normal to people. And we're called crazy and weird because we don't think it's normal. All the good girls go to hell. Even God herself is. I don't know. If you think that, do you think Billie Eilish voted for Donald Trump?
No, she
No.
was.
I
She
think
was
she
one
was
of
a
the
public
people.
endorser
Yeah.
of Kamala Harris, actually. And, you know, it's just, they can try and say that there's no correlation between pop culture, demonic and satanic influence or propaganda in the Democrat Party if they want to. But if I'm a Democrat presidential candidate and I don't condemn, I mean, let's actually say condemn. Let's be firm. If I don't condemn Billie Eilish and her endorsement, you know, am I not culpable for when a sick and twisted individual goes into a Catholic church and shoots kids? These are the questions. I mean, and I get it. All of society kind of doesn't want to go there because it's, well, where we're going to draw these lines, right? I get it. Even your libertarians, even some of your Republicans, your atheist Republicans that don't want God in politics are going to say, yeah, but you can't start to, you know, regulate religion. Listen, when we got, uh, you know, young 20-year-old white girls who are rich, uh, voluntarily dressing up as demons, something's going wrong here. I mean, you know, there's 1,000 other ways to make your music and your art and things unique. And it's a real sign of cultural decadence when the art, you know, starts to reflect despair and the demonic. And there's so many other things you could do. I mean, there's and you see a trend too, right? There's a lack of originality in it because you see all these artists start to dabble in the demonic. And it's like, first off, it's unoriginal. So like, cover one eye, Illuminati. Right? It's unoriginal, number one. Like the last 15 people did it and you must have missed it. It's getting a narcissism. You're living in your own little bubble. You're not even self-aware enough to realize that the same artist in the same genre just did it 6 months ago. It's ridiculous. But that's how Satan works, though. That's how evil and demonic possession actually works. It puts you in your own bubble and you don't realize you've become a part of the same sort of systemic corruption you say that you're fighting against. That's fucking weird, guys. That's weird. And guess what? I don't want to be nice to you people. I don't like you. I don't want to pretend I like you. I don't want to shake hands with you. I don't want to come to some type of compromise about demonic possession. I just want to tell you, may Jesus Christ have mercy on your soul. I hope that you find the light. And as it pertains to this country and our children, we will never, ever, 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 ever again give the reins of power over to you fucking weirdos. That's it. That's it. Been another episode of Please Call Me Crazy, brought to you by Free People Radio and TireGet.com. That's TireGet.com. You have to buy tires from somebody. You might as well buy them from us. Help support the movement. Help fund the movement. We believe in the freedom of movement. And that's exactly what the establishment wants to take from you now. Your host, Royce White, here in the belly of the beast, Minneapolis, Minnesota. This was episode 2.
Oh, I already forgot. 274.
74, episode 274. Fast approaching 300. And we appreciate everybody out there in the audience, all the listeners and viewers. We appreciate your viewership and listenership today and in the future. We got a lot of feedback at the State Fair. A lot of people who came up and said, man, I listened to your show. I watched the podcast. I'm listening to the podcast. I love the podcast, right? So despite the shadow banning that we experience from YouTube on a regular basis, we know that the frequency is out there and people are getting the information and the content. We hope you enjoy it. We hope you enjoyed today's usual Wednesday reaction episode. Feel free to clip the episode, like, comment, subscribe. Visit freepeopleradio.com. Visit roycewhite.us. That is the Senate campaign website. If you didn't get a T-shirt that you wanted at the State Fair, we're going to have a lot of those T-shirts up on the roycewhite.us Senate campaign website here in the next week or so, as well as a revitalization of the Free People Radio store. A lot of great merchandise going to be there pretty soon. So we appreciate you. And I think for Friday's Family and Friends episode, our guest will be Dr. Taylor Marshall. Dr. Taylor Marshall is an incredible Catholic commentator, commentates on the state of the Catholic Church, the Catholic faith, our Christian community. And given what happened last week, who better to have on than Dr. Taylor Marshall, who I believe just spent a good 30 minutes on War Room with Steve Bannon in the last few days. After that, we'll have Tim Gordon. We'll also have the great A.J. Barker. So we got a who's who of our Catholic friends and thought leaders coming up on the podcast here in the next few weeks. Appreciate you again. God bless you. God bless America. Godspeed. The people are coming. Remember normal. Remember normal. We'll see you Friday. Everything's up on the bar. We're all in. We get to decide. Do you want to live on your knees or do you want to die on your feet fighting? That's the decision you get to make now.